So what Hamas did in October is amply reported. By now, we know the exact number of people they killed, the people they abducted and held as hostages, how many of those hostages have been killed. We even know the backstories of how their families are dealing with it all through the mainstream media. But until recently, not much was being reported about the atrocities happening in Gaza. Thankfully now, because of the activism of people on the ground and people on social media, more and more of what is happening in Gaza is coming up and is being paid attention to. There is one organization that has consistently worked, and it's a progressive Jewish organization that has consistently worked for the rights of the Palestinian people in opposition to the imperial policies of the State of Israel. And let's talk about what they are doing right now during this genocide in Gaza. So the organization that I'm talking about and whose work I really respect is Jewish Voice for Peace, which is the largest progressive Jewish organization based in the United States, which has consistently advocated for the rights of Palestinians. For the purposes of full disclosure, I am a member of Jewish Voice for Peace, and it goes by JVP. If you go to their website, and I'll post the link in the description, go to their magazine, which is called The Wire, where they cover things that are happening right now in Gaza. And according to their records, which they have collated from different resources, at this point, what their opinion is that even if there were to be a permanent ceasefire right now, the suffering in Gaza is likely to continue even after that. According to their figures, so far, 33,000 Palestinians have already been killed. At least 6,500 more excess deaths are expected. And because of the disease and hunger and injuries that have already happened. Then there are about 5,000 people who are unaccounted for, most probably because they are lying dead under the debris. So the number actually is not just 33,000, it is close to 44,000 people killed so far by the Israeli armed forces in Gaza. In Gaza, also, at this point, 74,000 people are wounded, and they are not getting the kind of Medicare that they would get because all 36 hospitals in Gaza and more than 100 clinics have been either fully destroyed or partially destroyed. The children suffering from infectious diseases right now in Gaza is 23 times more than anywhere else in the world, and 90% of the children under the age of 5 suffer from more than one infectious disease. And 1.1 million people in Gaza are suffering from catastrophic food insecurity, which in other words, in clear terms, is that they are starving. And 1/3 of children under 2 are acutely malnourished in northern Gaza. These are the figures from Jewish Voice for Peace, and they have collated these figures from different resources. So what this means is that not only are people dying by direct military actions, but the long-term impact of this war is going to cause more suffering and more casualties. And this is what we need to highlight, we need to focus on, because we are long past a point where these casualties and these consequences for human life could be just brushed under the carpet and could be covered up by Israeli propaganda or the disinterest of Western media. New York Times, for example, doesn't care to write, detailed articles about the suffering of these children. So my point today in this video was to remind ourselves and remind you that it's our obligation as human beings to remember the people, of course, who were killed by Hamas and who are still being held hostage, and hope for their safe release, but also to accord the same value to Palestinian lives and to continue talking about what has happened, how many people have been killed, and what is likely to happen even if the war stops today. But more importantly, to remind ourselves that we shall, in our lifetime, never stay silent if Israel were to do this again. We cannot let the Israeli right-wing government or its supporters get away with this degree of mass murder and starvation and destruction of the Palestinian people. That is why I have consistently now started talking about this, because to not speak against these atrocities for me is an abdication of my responsibility as a scholar, as a public critic, and as someone who cares deeply about humanity and its future. So, if you have a few moments, please go to JVP's website. I will post the link in the description, and just look at what they have done so far for the cause of justice and peace between Israel and Palestine, and how have they consistently, despite all the opposition from the mainstream dominant Israel supporting groups in the United States, how have they consistently raised a collective voice for the rights of Palestinian people. And if you feel like it, do join them, do support them, because I think what they do is a really noble cause. But in the meantime, these figures that I've talked about and the suffering that still continues in Gaza, please think about it, ponder, and then ask yourself, is there something I can do, right? And then go ahead and do it. That's all. Thank you so much. Stay safe, be kind and generous, and I will now see you next time. If you have a few more moments, just take a look at the video that comes up. It's also related to the same topic of Palestine. And take a few moments to watch it, and then let me know what you think about it. Thank you so much, and peace and love.